Missouri Senator Josh Hawley had a front row seat to all of this while this was unfolding. You came on the show, I don't know how many times, Senator, as this open borders catastrophe was being unleashed on the American people. But do you find this New York Times piece to be a CYA moment for the Democrats, cleverly planted?
Oh, of course it is, Laura, because the truth is this was a Democrat policy and a Democrat priority for years and years, and nobody, by the way, was cheering it on more than the Democrats' biggest donors, the multinational corporations. What did they want out of the deal? Cheap labor. All this talk about human right to migration, that just means cheap labor. That's why all of the big funders wanted this. That's why they shoveled the money to Biden. By the way, that same ideology is what led Biden to open the doors to all of those Afghan refugees and parolees to abuse the system. And it landed us the terrorists who just attacked these National Guardsmen. It landed us thousands of others, Afghan parolees. We have no idea what their ties are to terrorism, to terrorist groups, because Biden just opened the doors, let them all in the country, no vetting. To think that this was just happenstance or accident, it wasn't. It was part of a plan. It was all funded by the corporate interests because it's what they wanted. And now the American people and the Trump administration are left to pick up the pieces.
Okay, guys, this is Justin Paul. Welcome to the video. We're just getting more reactions to people's thoughts on the Biden administration really dropping the ball and just opening our borders and really just allowing any and everyone to come in without proper vetting. And, it's led to some unfortunate events, some tragedies, and, we still don't know what's to come. We do have ICE and Homeland Security, Border Patrol. They're all on the task of trying to find people who migrated here who, have criminal backgrounds, have done criminal things within the United States, and try to find these individuals and get them deported out of the country. And, just getting more reactions here to, certain senators and other lawmakers who, their opinions on how they feel as far as the things that happened during the Biden administration and even before then. So let's continue to get a little bit more information.
Yeah, I just howled. Everyone's like, oh, the New York Times they're really seeing the light here. Give me a break. They're not seeing the light on this. The Democrats see what's coming perhaps in the midterms because Americans are still ticked off about this open border, and we're seeing crime after crime after crime committed by people who were released by Biden or who came back into the country under Biden. And this light rail attack by a Biden, gotaway that just happened again in Charlotte. We'll get his photo up any second. But, I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. Senator, House Democrat revealed the Democrats' plan if they retake the House next year. Watch.
Now, as you can see from this infographic here, this is the individual who just recently attacked a person on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as you can see, the person was deported by the Trump administration in March of 2018. And then they re-entered the United States during the Biden administration in 2021. It said, deported. They were deported again during that administration, though, so I do give them that. But they re-entered the United States at an unknown time and location. So this person had prior convictions for robbery, arrest for aggravated battery, resisting arrest, and false ID. I mean, I don't know how many stories that people will have to hear, or news clips that people will have to see of these type of things to kind of get it to register in their head that we have a lot of people that are here in our country, and again, they do not mean us well. So you definitely have to be vigilant when you're out and dealing with people and stuff like that. And you just have to be aware of your surroundings. It's pretty simple. It's just no more to that. You have to be aware of who's around you, and the dangers that can happen, and hopefully they never happen again, but we definitely have to keep our awareness up.
There has to be a foundation for what Democrats stand for as we go into the next election, and that is a pragmatic solution to many of the immigration issues that we face, including at the border. That includes a strong border, that includes legal pathways to residency and work status for many folks that are here and that have been here for many years, and some resolution for dreamers. It starts with a plan, turns into legislation, but we have to get the American people on our side.
Senator, so they go from trying to cover their butts on the border and what they did to now saying, we're going to double down on failure and we're going to go for a mass amnesty that's going to be a magnet at the border. I've killed about 4 amnesty bills in my career, from radio to television, or helped kill them. And this is just be another one. Any Republican that goes near this, and I hope everybody's watching, you're next on the list. Sorry.
Yeah, it absolutely should be. But, one of the most important mantras in politics, Laura, and you know this, is follow the money. So I would just say, as to that last comment from that Democrat, just follow the money and you'll understand all of this. It's the big donors, once again, the multinational corporations, once again, saying we want to get back to open border policies. Why? We don't like the fact that American wages are going up, the corporations say. They hate the fact that Trump is delivering for blue-collar workers. They don't want that. They want floods of cheap labor coming in this country. They want their profits up, American wages down. Trump is reversing the Biden years, the trend of blue-collar wages going down. He's getting them up. We need to continue that trend. We need to continue to keep the border locked down, make immigration work for Americans. That's a winning formula. That's what Trump is delivering.
And see, just to kind of harp on the point that they're making there, Americans are looking to get paid more with their wages. The thing is, you can have people that come from other countries who are willing to work for way less than you are as an American. And that's just the truth. I've firsthand witnessed and heard accounts of this type of things happening to people. And, it's clear as day to see what's happening, Of course, we need wages to go up because the cost of living is going up. The price of inflation is going up. But these corporations, they are not want to really pay Americans a proper wage according to, affordability and living and stuff. That's why we're seeing housing crisis. That's why we're seeing, freezes on hiring, and you're seeing, a record number of people being laid off. Because a lot of these people are due to get raises. A lot of these employees they're advocating for raises. They're not really accepting, jobs that are not really willing to pay them a decent wage that would allow them to live within the United States. And, it's just a shame that people kind of just turn a blind eye to this type of thing, and they don't really take this into consideration, as this is the reason why this and that and the third is happening. But this is the reason why. Because they can hire someone from another country who is willing to come in and do the same job that you are willing to do, but they do not have to pay them as much as they will have to pay you. And that's just the truth. So, anybody who's of working age and out in the workforce, you absolutely should be against an open border policy. It's crazy that people are really out there in the streets protesting when you have, these people committing crimes and taking your jobs. It's just plain and simple as that. Taking your housing, taking your public funding, and you name it. You guys are getting pushed out the way for people who are migrating into the country to come in and reap the benefits that should be going to U.S. citizens. I'm going to play another video here. Let me just bring it up.
Joining me now to continue this conversation is acting ICE director and former ICE field officer and director under Joe Biden, Todd Lyons. Director, thanks for being with us here today. Let's talk first about the last 4 years. Why was this done? What American voted for what happened? 50 million people not born in this country, accelerating who knows how many millions under Joe Biden. How in any way does that reflect the will of the American people?
Yeah, Will, it's scary because under the last administration, I was the Deputy Assistant Director of the Southwest Border for enforcement removal operations. And, our brothers and sisters at the Border Patrol were just so overwhelmed. And at that time, we had to release so many individuals into the United States. And, that graph that you had up was, I think the most telling thing, right? Over 1,900 encounters of known or suspected terrorists that we know of, right? And when you think about those crazy numbers when it comes to gotaways and just the sheer volume we saw every day, and you just think of, we don't even know who's in our country right now.
No, Director, I think that our children, very possibly and very probably our grandchildren, will be looking back at this moment in history, really since 1965, but focusing on the last 4 years and going, why did they want this to happen to America? Meaning the America they will live in, their children are schooled in, it will reflect something vastly different. And I don't know how that's an avoidable future. I know you're trying right now to deport illegal immigrants, but I don't know how you could deport enough to avoid that future and those questions from our grandchildren.
Well, I think the big thing we really need to focus on those worst of the worst, much like that gentleman you were talking about, right? We hope the county honors our detainer. We hope they don't release him again. But this is someone that shouldn't even be walking around our neighborhoods, right? And here we go. We have another senseless, violent act committed in a sanctuary jurisdiction. That doesn't have to happen, right? And people talk about ICE being on the streets and making more arrests. If we just had elected officials in these sanctuary jurisdictions work with us to turn over these criminally legal aliens, our neighborhoods would be so much safer.
Yeah, I agree. That's the thing, Director. I think everybody agrees, apparently outside of a few sanctuary mayors in blue cities across the United States, but most everybody agrees, get out the worst of the worst. I think the real rub is, what do you do? What does Border Patrol do? What does the Trump administration do with the rest of the tens of millions that came to this country illegally, that no one voted on, all of a sudden taking welfare services, education services, and living in the United States?
Well, Will, that's one thing you'll hear a lot of us always say, is that President Trump and Secretary Noem have taken the handcuffs off of us now. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to enforce the Immigration Nationality Act. We're not going to turn a blind eye to these collaterals that we encounter while we are going for the worst of the worst. If you're here in the country illegally, President Trump has made it clear from the start, you are going to be removed from the United States. That is our mission. We're bringing on 10,000 new deportation officers, 1,500 new Homeland Security Investigation Special Agents. We are going to go out there. We're going to target these individuals, and we're going to make a significant impact, not only public safety, but we're actually going to enforce the Immigration Nationality Act, which Congress codified and have the ability to change it, but they haven't. And so we're going to enforce the law the way it's written.
Okay, so as you just heard, this is Todd Lyons, the acting ICE director. And he just says, the Secretary of Homeland Security and President Trump have taken the cuffs off of them. They're going to be, enforcing, the immigration policies, and they're hiring new agents for, Homeland Security, Border Patrol, ICE. They're hiring people, and This is what has to happen, because, like they were saying, we do not know who's in our country, and it's just a terrible thought, really scary thought, that not only for us and our generation, but for our children and then their children, that they could also still be dealing with the ramifications of what happened from the past 4 years, and I've lost people that I hold near dear to my heart because they believed in one thing and I believed in another. And I always just want to ask them, can they justify somebody being stabbed on a train by someone who wasn't supposed to be here because of the president or party that they like? And I kind of don't blame them, because a lot of people were raised a certain type of way to only and even myself, like, I was raised in a home of individuals who voted Democrat, but I'm an adult who has my own mind and my own thinking, and I have a good understanding of what's going on out here, and it's clear to see that that's not the party that I need to be involved in. because I do see the shadiness, and I see, the backdoor things that are happening, and open border policies, and just people getting paid kickbacks and all kind of stuff, and not saying that that doesn't happen in on the Republican Party, but right now, they are, their policies make a lot more sense, and the moves and motions that they're trying to implement into America is what I'm aligning with. That's what I align with. That's how I want to live my life, and how I want my children to live their life, and their children to live their life. So you know the whole Democrat Republican thing kind of gets tiring after a while, but I have conservative values, and I like to see America thrive. I'm born and raised here, so I don't want to see my country go to shit, and that's just because I am proud to be American. I am proud to call the United States my home, and that's just that. That's just how I feel. So um we'll see, more that becomes of this. I'm gonna stay on this topic and keep reporting on it. And I do appreciate everyone who has commented on my past videos, and giving their opinion and 2 cents on everything. I keep doing reactions to this topic for sure, because it's something that I feel like is very interesting, and I know that this is something that we're going to be looking at years on down the line, and thinking like, man, what do we get ourselves into? So pray for the best, but we already know we can expect the worst in some certain situations. And just thankfully, we do have a president now that wants to, make America great, and wants to put Americans first. And, you know, hopefully we can continue it, for enough time that we can kind of get stuff back to like normalcy, where America's thriving, economy's thriving, people are able to afford to live and send their kids to get good education, and we're making wages that matches the you know what we're expected to pay as far as bills and food and stuff like that. Like, I just pray that we kind of get back to that, and at that point, I feel like it will be a success as far as what Trump is looking to do with his presidency. Again, if you like my content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And once again, this is Justin Paul. Peace.